Welcome to the Business Vitality Podcast. My name is Catherine Cantey. I am the host and an executive coach. I work with teams, individuals, and leaders to help create measured leadership change. We do that using practical applications, and our clients are creating 100% measured results as seen by those around them. Not necessarily what I think or what they think, but what the other people are seeing. And they are being recognized for the hard work that they're doing. If you're interested in learning more about some of the work that we're doing, you can learn more at catherinecantey.com. I would love for you to subscribe to this show, to Business Vitality. This is my way to continue to pay it forward and share business best practices. Stay tuned and listen to the interview. Thanks for being here. Kevin Palmieri, you are the founder and CFO of Next Level University, found on the web at nextleveluniverse.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am excited to chat and see where we go today.
This is going to be fun. You have such a impressive background, and we can take this conversation a lot of different ways. But before I start asking a whole lot of questions, I would love for you to explain at a very high level. Tell me about Next Level University and what you do with that.
Yeah, so Next Level University is not only a podcast that we do 7 times a week, so we do an episode every single day for our community, but it is a business that our real thought is if you don't have money, but you want to be into self-improvement, we have the podcast. If you have a little bit of money and you want coaching, we have that. So the real goal for us, Catherine, is no matter what your financial situation or your self-improvement set point is, there's somewhere for you. That's our ultimate goal here.
I appreciate that. So tell me, how did you find this? You've shared your background a little bit on the internet, but for people that are new to you, Kevin, just kind of talk about, if you don't mind, that journey that kind of led you here, because everybody who's in self-improvement, we all have the story that supports it.
Yeah.
And I think yours is unique. So
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah. It usually comes from pain. Unfortunately, I didn't set it up that way, but that seems to be the way it works. So the quickest version is, when I graduated high school, I knew I didn't want to go to college. I didn't know why, but I just knew it wasn't for me. So I ended up working odd jobs for several years. I ended up getting this very unique job opportunity in an industry called weatherization. So we would go into buildings and make them more energy efficient. Since I was working for the state and government at times, I made anywhere from $60 to $120 an hour. So I was like, oh my God, I made it. Like, this is it. So if you zoom in on Kevin at 25, my girlfriend was a model. I had a sports car. I had just won a bodybuilding show. So I was in the best shape of my life. I had money. Everything seemed really good, but my internal state and my external state were drastically different. I was insecure. I was not confident. I was afraid of my own shadow. And eventually that came to bite me in the butt because my girlfriend left me and I ended up falling into a depression. I thought making more money was the only way to fix myself. So I went all in on making money. And that next year, I spent 10 months on the road, just traveling up and down the East Coast of the US, working, because most of our contracts are on the road. Made $100,000 that year, thought that was going to fix my life. And I realized that for that year and most of my life, I had lived unconsciously, just kind of gliding through life, hoping things were going to work out. The opposite of unconscious was hyperconscious. So I started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast, fell in love with podcasting as I fell out of love with my job, couldn't leave my job because I needed the money. So I ended up sitting on the edge of a bed debating suicide shortly thereafter, because I felt so stuck and so trapped, and like there was nowhere else for me to go. And I'd be starting over and I'd be letting so many people down. But I ended up leaving my job and then going full time into what we're doing today and figuring out how to grow a business as a broke entrepreneur.
Your story is thank you for sharing your story. It's pretty special. And I feel like, I'm going to kind of turn it just a little bit. I want to ask a different question. There's a lot of amazing, technical colleges that are out there. There's a lot of high school students that I've worked with in the past, and they just go and they make decisions and they decide what they want to do with their life. And not everybody's got to go to college to figure this out. Like my favorite banker that I love to work with, she won't tell anybody, but she has a high school education. And she was like, don't tell everybody. And I was like, okay, but she's amazing. And like, you don't have to have all these degrees to do great work. Yeah. And so you jumped right into the workforce
and you did what worked for you. And, sometimes we are groomed to think that we have to make all this money and money equals happiness. What do you say to, and I've got a couple folks that come to mind, early 20s, they're working all the time. They want to make the six figures. They're at the six figures and they're spending the money as fast as it's coming in because nobody's really talked to them about money. What do you say to those people, or what do you say to yourself then that you wish you knew as you've studied all this self-improvement and just been down this amazing path?
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. I would say this. I do believe money can buy momentary bouts of happiness. I do. If you buy a nice car, you're going to feel happy. You're going to get a dopamine spike for a short amount of time. The one thing money cannot buy is fulfillment. And that is what I think we are all after as human beings. But this is the thing. It's very hard to recognize fulfillment in others. So when we turn on the TV and we see mansions and cars and relationships and bodies and jewelry, we have this assumption that that person is happy. They might be happy. It does not suggest, though, that that person is fulfilled. I think happiness is a result. If this interview goes well and you like me, I will be happy. Regardless of how it goes, I should be fulfilled because I'm in the process of purpose, I'm in the process of growth, and I'm in the process of evolution. So what I would tell myself is setting goals and accomplishing goals is great. And that might give you bouts of happiness, but happiness is not sustainable. Fulfillment is. I'm more fulfilled on a journey that I most likely will never accomplish with the goals that we have than I used to be before. So for me, it was reshifting the target from happiness, if then, to fulfillment, just being on purpose and being aligned and doing what you love and doing what you feel you're supposed to be doing.
Okay. So many people are seeking happiness in this world to the point that I met with one of my mentors and friends, Marshall Goldsmith, a few months ago, and he's phenomenal, written tons of books, just amazing success. And he told me who he's working with now. And these are amazing people, live in Dubai and have lives that look amazing. And I said, well, what do you work with them on? And he said, Catherine, they have everything in this world. The one thing they don't have is happiness. I'm working with these people to help them find happiness. And so for you to realize this early in, and happiness and fulfillment are two different things. I don't know if listeners can really understand the fact that happiness is that moment thing, but fulfillment and understanding that life is the journey and the journey is like what we're here for. We're just not trying to accomplish another check the box, opportunity. How does somebody, at no matter what stage they're at themselves, they're growing themselves, how do you even begin to define fulfillment? And they're like, what is even fulfillment? I thought I was supposed to be chasing happiness, myself included. I went down that path, but it is fulfillment and like what it is. But how do you find fulfillment? Where do you start? Is there a book? What helped you find fulfillment?
Yeah, that is a great question. It wasn't about me. The best thing I can frame it as is when I started the podcast, it wasn't about me. I had no idea how to make money, to a detriment. I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on, if I have a great conversation and somebody is impacted, awesome. Like I'm doing something good. So fulfillment, I think you find it by not doing what you like, but doing something that you're always grateful you did after. I think that is such a unique perspective where I love Netflix as much as the next person. My wife and I worked a 12, 13-hour day yesterday. We watched an hour of Netflix. Netflix can make me happy. But if I watch Netflix for 12 hours, I am not going to be fulfilled because I'm going to regret it. So I would say, if you can ask yourself a simple question, what do I want to do that I know makes me feel good, but I don't regret after? That's question one. Question two is, what is something I don't really want to do, but I know I'll be grateful I did after? The gym is a great example, right? Like it's fulfilling to pour into your own health, but it kind of sucks. It kind of sucks when the alarm goes off. But if you're always grateful you did it, you're on the path to fulfillment. And the last thing I would say, Catherine, is you have to reflect on your past. What are the things that you were always drawn to? Like one of the examples I use, my my business partner's girlfriend went to the Great Barrier Reefs. She found out the Great Barrier Reefs are a Great Barrier Cemetery, unfortunately. And that became part of her purpose. So will she be fulfilled if she is adding value to the environment? Yes, because she believes she's on a quest to improve something that in reality will never actually get finished. I think that's kind of a good measure for fulfillment.
I love these questions. And if I heard this correctly, I want to make sure I captured it right because I'm taking notes. But you're doing things that do make you feel good, and things that you don't want to necessarily do. But at the very end of it, you feel good at the end of it, whether it's going to the gym, which I got on the Peloton this morning, didn't want to, but I was like, I'm going to make time because I know mentally I feel better after I get off of that. And then also finding the things that are of interest to you. And it sounds like intentionality, and then intentionally working that into your calendar and working it into your life. And then the whole reflection on the past is so important.
Yeah.
Whether it's on yourself or whether it's on your business, we've got to reflect on what were the highs and what were the lows, and what do we do from there. This is kind of fun being able to talk about this. And you talk about in the beginning that maybe you were lacking some confidence, and I think it's rare to hear a guy talk about how they lacked confidence, because I see guys all over the place, and I'm like, if he gets one more ounce of confidence, I don't know, his head might explode because he's overconfident. Do you mind talking about confidence, and like, how do you find confidence? Because I've talked to women about it and it's one thing, but I would love to hear your perspective if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's a very simple concept that's very hard to execute. Usually you have to figure out what is your comfort zone, what is your learning zone, and what is your anxiety zone. And you have to find a way to constantly reach your learning zone. So all this means is, for many of us, we have determined that fill in the blank. I cannot do blank because I'm afraid of blank. That becomes a contract that we have with ourselves. It becomes a fence. That fear becomes a fence that we are never willing to overcome because we've worked it up as this monster in the closet when it's really a sock. So when you force yourself to do one small step towards that, then you build that confidence. Right? Then you can say, okay, I'm a little bit outside of my comfort zone. What I thought might go terribly wrong didn't. Now I have proof. I always say this, you have to look at the most recent and relevant proof. Now, for many people, the most recent relevant proof is walking up to the edge of the cliff and realizing, can't do it. That's actually making that cycle worse, right? You're kind of forming a confidence conundrum there. So it sounds overly simplistic, but it's okay. What is one fear? Let's just say it's heights. Okay, I'm afraid of heights. Cool. Let's break that down to, don't go to the top of the mountain. Don't go bungee jumping. Don't go skydiving. Maybe you go climb up a ladder. Something simple like that. I know it might not seem like that crosses over to confidence. I think confidence, true confidence, is the belief of one's own competence. And the more experienced you are in life and the more things you try, I think that's really where it comes from. Confidence is the knowing that you'll figure it out even if it goes wrong. And if it does go wrong, it's not the end of the world, and it doesn't mean you're a terrible person. And maybe in the future we'll do a longer episode, because there's like self-belief and self-worth. Those are often misconstrued when they're very different things. So there's a lot that goes into it.
I love that. And I love that you simplify it, because a lot of the work that we do, we just get back down to the practical applications of like, how can we find the MVP, minimal viable product or solution, and just go step out there and take a chance. And yeah, if you are scared of heights, start with something small and build that momentum, like what you're saying. And it is a mental mind block at times, thinking we're telling ourselves we can't do it. And then when we dig deeper, we probably find out, this was just a limiting belief that was passed on to us from somebody else.
Yeah.
Because we don't know any different until we learn or hear this from the people that are surrounding us.
Yeah. Most people were afraid of what they're doing today. They just kept going.
Yeah.
I was afraid of podcasting at the beginning, but now I have 1,300 episodes. So it seems people say like, oh, you're so confident. I've just done this so many times. This is just normal. When you're normal, when something you are terrified of becomes your normal in a positive light, then you're probably going to become confident there. It's just the reps.
Life is all about the reps, isn't
100%.
it? And the journey. I love that. Okay. So this reminds me of some leaders that I was working with, and, you're having to take chances and you're putting yourself out there in business and life and everywhere. And you shared a little bit before about improving decision making and being able to just go in there and be able to make some decisions. Some of these younger leaders are out in the organization. They may not have all of the same experience of the people they're leading. So I work with folks in construction, and they have to go out into these big job sites, and they kind of have to call the BS on it, that like this job is not where it needs to be, but you have a veteran on the job who's been doing this same type of masonry work or woodwork for a long time. And you don't have the credentials, but they have the experience, and you got to be able to make decisions and be able to have the confidence and that competence to be able to do that. I would love to hear from you, just as far as how do you improve decision making in scenarios that you've run across that kind of helps, that could help some of the listeners that may be new into having to make some really, big decisions.
We as a culture, we try to make sure that we are sharing the intention behind the decision with everybody, because I think oftentimes it's almost like, oh, Kev said this is the way it's going to go, or Alan, the CEO, he said that's how it's going to go. Like, that's just the way it is. But when in reality, if somebody was to say, hey, Kev, we have to go a different way with this, and here are the reasons why. I think your idea is great. I really, really, really do. I just don't know if it's best for the sustainability long term, and here are the reasons. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, a lot of people don't actually see what goes into the decision making. And you said this in the preamble, sometimes you just have to communicate. Sometimes you just have to sit down and say, I understand, this, and your opinion and your strategy and what you're bringing to the table are super valuable and super appreciated. Unfortunately, here's why we have to make this decision. And then you kind of connect on that. One of the things we tell people often is, I always want your feedback. I always want your truth. I always want your ideas. Please don't be offended if we don't use them, though, because we have to go with what we believe will be best based on our experience, based on the data, and honestly, based on intuition. A lot of the decisions we make are based on the intuition of the time we've spent. So I would say just one simple word is communication. Communicating effectively behind the scenes, what's going on in front of the scenes. I think that is a hack, and something that is probably underutilized, I would say.
Do you have any tips on communication? That seems to be a theme that I'm seeing now. We tell ourselves stories of how we're communicating or how we think we're communicating. We're really not. What are your thoughts on communication?
Ask yourself a simple question. Are the people I'm communicating with results driven or relationships driven? That right there. If somebody is relationships driven, you need to communicate with them drastically different than somebody who just cares about the success. So with somebody who is relationships driven, you should really lead with praise, you should lead with heart, and you should lead with vulnerability. With someone who's results driven, you probably lead with data, lead with numbers, and lead with results. And those are just two drastically different conversations. Our team is primarily emotionally driven women, which is primarily our target audience, which has taught me a very unique way of communicating, leading, and being vulnerable. So if you asked me that question 5 years ago, I would not have a good answer, most likely.
Sounds like you're learning at rapid pace.
I'm trying.
And to be able to have these relationships, you're having to build trust with folks along the way. It builds stronger communication. Do you mind talking about, how you're able to kind of accelerate some of building that trust with others?
Yeah. So we have a very unique culture, so it might not be for everybody, but I have a deep belief that the closer you get to someone, the closer you get to the truth. And this is why, as a leader, as a personality, as a person, as an energy, you have to be unreasonably consistent, not showing up every day, but in the way you show up every day. So I would say you have to make people feel safe by showing your own unique vulnerabilities. One of the best things that we've ever done is we do a weekly call every Wednesday. It's an hour and a half team call. And the first half hour is just, hey, share about your week. I don't care about anything business. Like, what's your most important win? What's your most important improvement? And on the last call, every single person on the call cried, everybody, myself included. Now, I understand that's not what every culture is going for, but we got a ton of messages after of, I'm so grateful I'm part of this team. Not because of the results, not because of the impact, because I actually feel safe for once. So I think it's understanding that at the end of the day, these are human beings that are living human experiences. They go home and they have human lives. If we can help in all those areas, you're probably going to be a more influential and more sought after leader.
I love the all of the tips and insights and the clarity that you bring to it all. The fact that that you're able to do this with the culture. There's so many organizations that I've seen, they talk culture, they just can't get culture. The people that do get culture, they're building exactly what you're talking about. They carve out time for people to be able to share at the beginning of a meeting of like what is going on with their life, and they get to share that and they feel connected. And it's these small things that sometimes we lose focus on over time because we just get so busy about just trying to deliver. We forget that there is a human factor to it. As we kind of wrap up, I would love to hear, it sounds like you're learning everywhere. I love to keep learning and keep, just keep seeing what else is out there. Do you have favorite books? Are you on a current topic that you're working on right now that you're just researching? What do you have if somebody, I'm just curious, where are you learning and how can I keep learning from you?
I'm always learning. Right now I think like a rocket scientist. So it's all about first principles and how they launch rockets and how that really carries over to self-improvement in business. So that's been a very interesting book. I think a really good book for leaders is The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. That is a great book about understanding human beings. Anything emotional intelligence is super powerful for leaders. And then one of my favorite books of all time is Mindset by Carol Dweck. Huge fan of that book. It's simple, but it's powerful. So yeah, that. And then, other than that, I'm very specific. So when I need to learn more about finance, I just dive into finance. And right now it's more a season of, I want to keep learning about business, and I want to understand people at a deeper level. So those are my suggestions currently.
That is fantastic. I love Mindset with Carol Dweck. I had an earlier podcast with Ryan Goffredson, and he studied her work and has created this amazing emotional intelligence roadmap that goes with it. I've hired him, at the bank to do some work when I was with them, and the whole mindset and like what we're having to go through to be able to make decisions and connect with people. It is just, it's so fun to be able to go down that rabbit hole. So tell me, if someone wants to learn more about you and the work that you're doing, Kevin, do you mind sharing what's the best way to connect?
Yeah, you can shoot me a message, an email, kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. I'm happy to respond to anything. And then our podcast is Next Level University. You can listen to that. There's an episode every day. So you'll either love us or you'll get sick of us very quickly. No offense either way.
Well, I appreciate it. Kevin Palmieri, you are the founder and CFO of Next Level University, found on the web at nextleveluniverse.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks for listening to the episode. If you like it, please subscribe, share this episode or this show with other people around you. The greatest form of a compliment is a referral. I really appreciate them. And if you think that you want to learn more about some of the work we're doing, I encourage you to reach out to catherinecantey.com. You can schedule a call or just continue to read articles and information that we post out there. Thank you so much for being here.